Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Derek Van Hook. We just woke up on this deserted island. We drove the boat over here yesterday and it took us a lot longer than expected. By the time we got onto the reef, we only had a half day to dive. We weren't able to get to those far spots that we know have some bigger fish. So we stayed close and shot a couple of nice snapper, but we weren't able to get into the fish that we wanted. Came back to the island that we're spending the night on and we cooked up some of that fish. Justin made it. It was absolutely fantastic. Set up our hammocks and went to sleep. So just woke up. Plan is to get back out there. We have a lot more time today and we're gonna try to land some nice fish. A lot of our favorite fish to spear over here are actually out of season. That includes fish like black grouper and hogfish. One of the coolest fish that we could land today would be an African Pompano. We're hoping to see a couple today, but we'll see what happens. We're packing up camp. We'll see you guys out on the water.
That's your banana coconut.
Well, I'm not gonna hang on to this. Just as we started to leave the island, a strange fog began to roll in. And with our first spot being over 50 miles away, we had a long ride ahead of us, which was going to give us plenty of time to think about the day ahead and reflect on the last time we headed to this spot. Around this time last year, my dad, brother, Jack, Ryan, and I embarked on a similar adventure. Back then, only Jack and Ryan had landed African Pompano with a pole spear. The legal limit for African Pompano is only 2 per boat, which means that, of the 3 of us who hadn't shot one, only 2 of us could legally take one on this trip. At the first spot we hit that trip, Justin made a dive and had a big African Pompano swim right up to him. But under the pressure to be one of the first 2 people on the boat to land an African Pompano, he released his spear a split second too early and missed his shot.
I don't even want to talk about it, man. That blew. I jump in as soon as the bubbles clear out of my mask. Gorgeous AP right there. He shoots off. I dive down, hit the bottom, grunt, 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 grunt. He comes in, take left hand, lunge forward, release, bounce it right off his nose. That's it. That's all she wrote.
You'll get him next time.
Yeah.
On that trip, Ryan and my dad managed to land APs, which meant my brother and I had to pass on every other African Pompano we saw for the rest of the trip. While I eventually landed an African Pompano later that summer, my brother still hasn't had the chance to cross this species off his list. And just like last year, there are more people on the boat who haven't landed APs than the number of APs we're allowed to bring home.
We are on a gorgeous spot. It is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and we're all suited up. We're about to get in.
I took the first turn driving, giving Justin, Jake, and Paige the best shot at landing an African Pompano. Most people probably don't even know what an African Pompano is. So you may be wondering, why is it such a big deal to shoot one? African Pompano are rare in both the Bahamas and the US. Their massive, silver bodies shimmer like diamonds in the water, and they're incredible to eat. Whether hooked or speared, they put up a serious fight, making them a challenge to land if you're lucky enough to get close enough for a shot. They can grow over 40 pounds, and honestly, they're one of my favorite fish to target. Jack breathes up for an exploratory dive and heads for the bottom. This spot has a lot of life, and what Jack does is he swims straight to the bottom, begins grunting, and throws up some sand to try to bring in some of the bigger predators that might be in the area. And fortunately, that is exactly what happens when these nice amberjacks show up. These fish are normally in much deeper water, so it's a real treat to see them up close and personal, and only about 40 feet of water. Amberjack aren't the best eating fish out there, and we get quite a few of them back home, so Jack lets them swim by. The ability to be super selective with the fish you take is unique to spearfishing, and it's what makes it one of the most conservation-friendly types of fishing out there. There's no such thing as bycatch in spearfishing, and even when you don't get to shoot a fish, just watching them can make your entire day. But we didn't come all this way just to watch the fish. Jack spots a couple of really nice Cubera snapper and takes a drop. These fish are notorious for being just a little bit too smart and a little bit too quick to land with a pole spear. In a day of diving, you'll see nearly 100 of these fish, but you'll never be able to get close enough The best strategy for landing a cabera snapper is to head straight to the bottom and then wait for the fish to come to you. When you decide to chase these fish, they are just not going to let you close that distance. So as Jack gets to the bottom here, these fish turn around to check him out, get a little bit too close, and he's able to let that new centerline pole spear fly and get a good holding shot on the fish. Not sure if the shot is going to hold, Jake takes a drop and puts a great second shot in the fish.
Thank you for the backer shot. And now that's up to me, bro. I got you. Woo!
Around the same time, Justin spots a nice yellow jack. These fish taste absolutely fantastic. Justin tries to get as close as he can before letting his pole spear fly and getting a great holding shot in the fish.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Jack spots a nice mutton snapper on the bottom, and he takes a drop and slowly starts making his way to the bottom. You don't want to chase these fish down too quick, or they'll definitely pick up on the fact that you're chasing them down, and they will get out of the way. So you can see Jack is just slowly getting close enough to the fish, and the fish gives him a quartering away shot here, and Jack lets that pole spear fly. Gets a pretty good shot in the fish. Now this fish is putting up quite a good fight, and Jack is using a belt reel, so if he needed to, he could swim straight to the surface while letting line out of that reel. But over here, there are a ton of sharks, and if you want to get this fish to the surface, you need to get him up quick. Otherwise, the sharks are going to pick up on that struggling fish, and they're going to come in and get themselves an easy meal.
I don't know if Jake got the footage,
I'm not sure if I did or not.
but him and Paige were buddy diving, and they got super stoked. We're all like, oh, they probably shot a seer or something like that. And sure enough, and I was like, you better watch them come up with an AP. Sure enough, freaking bummed out about it, loss of an AP.
I had the opportunity, and my hand got caught in my line, and it didn't deploy all the way, so I didn't get good penetration, but it was a nice EP.
Knowing that the APs were around, we quickly drove the boat back up to the start of the spot and got back in the water. Jake spots a whole school of African Pompano and quickly throws his flasher to get their attention. He takes a drop and grabs his flasher on the way to the bottom, then swims towards the school of massive fish. The fish pick up on Jake's movement and start swimming in the other direction. One fish seems to be a bit more curious than the rest. Jake adjusts his direction, closing the distance before letting his pole spear fly. The shot connects, the slip tip engages, and the fish takes off with the spear still attached. Jake palms his belt reel as he heads for the surface, knowing sharks are in the area, and it won't take long for them to key in on the struggling fish. Jake calls for help, then carefully fights the fish, trying not to put too much pressure on the slip tip to ensure he can land it. Speaking from experience, losing a fish like this is absolutely devastating, so it's worth taking your time to ensure that the shot holds until you get the fish in hand.
All on camera. Awesome, man. Nice fish.
Woo! My first AP, baby! That's what I'm talking about! I was diving down on this ledge. There was a bunch of small hogfish and a bunch of small mangrove snapper. I didn't really see anything, and I swam up in front of the ledge, and a whole school of spadefish came into me. And I'm like, oh wow, this kind of looks like where the AP are gonna be at. And I look past the school of spadefish, and there's a whole school of these things coming in right behind them. I threw the throw flasher. They didn't really pay no attention to it. I started grunting, just slowly sinking, not moving. And the school came in, and I went for one,
and he got too nervous, and I turned around, there's another one right next to me, so I switched the pole spear over and launched the shaft into him. I got so lucky. Thank you. Thank you so much, you beautiful creature.
Just as Jake gets his fish in the boat, Justin spots the same big school of African Pompano cruising beneath him. He starts breathing up, focusing on staying calm to maximize his bottom time, and his chances of getting close enough for a clean shot. He takes a drop, and rather than heading straight for the fish, instead he heads straight to the bottom. One of the best strategies for landing weary fish is to pay absolutely no attention to them. Justin keeps his face down and only sneaks a peek over his shoulder every now and then to see if the fish are coming to check him out. He spots 2 fish on his right, then catches a glimpse of the entire school on his left. Again, rather than chasing the fish, Justin hides his face and makes grunting noises to try to pique the school's interest. Just when it doesn't seem like it's working, the school of APs come in to take a look. The fish absolutely takes off with Justin's belt reel line, and just like Jake did, Justin starts carefully bringing in the line after the first run of the AP. He's a little bit unsure of his shot, so he calls Jack over to get a second shot to secure the fish. After a couple of swings and misses, Jack finally lands a shot in the fish and is able to swim it right to the surface.
Sorry about that, dude.
We had only been diving for about an hour, and we already had a limit of our target species in the boat. It really just goes to show what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, we struggled all day and ended up with just a few snapper. And today, we already had 2 people on their first African Pompano. As you can imagine, I was more than ready to get in the water.
So we're out here, Jake and I just shot these 2 massive APs, and we're gutting them to save ice, and look what I just found in his stomach, dude. This massive squid,
Let me see
man.
its eye. Hold it up so you can see its eyeball in it still.
Look at that.
Oh, that's so crazy. Huge.
Massive squid, dude.
Little
Freaking
calamari.
awesome. Oh, bro, you can eat that.
We make a short run to a nearby reef, and it's my turn to get in the water. With APs off the list, the goal is to land some big snapper, and the Bahamas is home to a variety of great eating snapper species. These include mutton snapper, cubera snapper, dog snapper, and mangrove snapper. Not only do these fish taste great, but they also have generous limits, up to a combined 10 snapper per person. It doesn't take long for me to spot a nice mutton snapper cruising the reef beneath me. I load up the pole spear and try to slowly make my way towards the fish without making it too apparent that that's what I'm targeting. Keeping my eye on the fish here, and as he turns around, I turn with him, extend my arm, and it's now or never. I need to close that distance to get a shot. Just as I'm getting close enough for a shot, the fish makes a sharp turn, gives a big kick, and I try to throw the pole spear to connect with the fish, but unfortunately I'm a little low with my shot and he gets away. The great thing about the Bahamas is you don't have to go too far to find another fish to dive on. In this case, I spot a nice cubera snapper, and I've been keeping my eye on it for a little bit of time now, and I've been seeing it go in and out of this cave. I take a drop and I'm slowly making my way to the bottom, and just as I'm getting close enough to start thinking about taking a shot, the fish shoots off. So I decide to just sit over this cave and scan around, see if there's any other fish in the area, and that's when I spot another cubera snapper off to my left. Now, he was swimming away from me at first, so I don't really think too much of it. But then, for whatever reason, the fish completely turns around. And as he swims towards the entrance of the cave, I realize there's only one place for him to go, and it's right to me. I get ready with the spear, and miss. I don't know how I missed this fish that close, but this was a great opportunity at landing a Cubera snapper. These fish are normally much more intelligent than that. We head out into deeper water and I take a drop. Where the Bahamian bank meets the Gulf Stream is a deep ledge, from about 30 feet to over 1,000. This edge is famous for its incredible reef, and the Gulf Stream current lets you cover a ton of ground with minimal energy while diving. On this dive, I'm letting the current carry me along the bottom while keeping a keen eye upstream for fish. That's when I spot this nice dog snapper. Known as one of the smartest snapper species, dog snapper are easy to recognize by the white triangle under their eyes. I deliver a couple of big kicks towards the fish and let the pole spear fly and just barely nick it. Knowing the shot wouldn't hold for long, I try to work the fish to me so that I can get my hands in its gills. And I was fortunate enough to get to it before the slip tip was able to tear out.
Pretty well, right?
I make another drop and am amazed by the water's clarity. We're in about 80 feet of water here and I can see the entirety of the bottom perfectly. As I enter the sink phase of my dive, I close my eyes for just a few seconds to try to calm myself down and extend my bottom time. When I sense I'm nearing the bottom, I level out and spot another large dog snapper swimming into a cave. I load my pole spear and slowly kick towards the top of the cave, trying to get within range while keeping the roof of the cave between me and the fish. I roll over the top edge of the cave and meet the fish head on, and land a great shot in the fish. I then start kicking up to the surface, fighting the fish on my way.
Dog, nice. Nice one.
Jake is drifting the same edge that I am, and what he's doing here is he's watching his throw flasher sink. This throw flasher is pretty much just a short piece of PVC covered in a reflective tape that imitates the flashy skin of a bait fish. Jake takes a drop and realizes that there's really nothing coming into his flasher, so he grabs it and then just sits in the water column where he's neutrally buoyant. Just like I was, Jake is looking ahead of him, scanning the reef to see if there's any fish while he is just carried along by the Gulf Stream. And it doesn't take long for him to spot another one of those nice dog snapper. This fish is a little bit curious and Jake gives a couple of big kicks to close the distance. It's not the best shot in the world, but Jake is able to thread the needle and land a holding shot in this fish. Jake does a good job of keeping the fish out of the reef, but there is a small shark around, and if I was in this situation, I personally would have tried to get that snapper in my hands. But Jake is trying to get to the surface, and because that fish is dangling a few feet underneath him, the shark thinks he can get an easy meal. Fortunately, Jack is there to scare the shark off, and we're able to land this fish. I breathe up and make another drop. We're still working the same roll off from about 40 feet to about 90 feet. And the whole name of the game here is to try to stay neutrally buoyant and let the current take you to the fish. If you had to swim a long distance to chase a fish down, you would not be able to hold your breath long enough. And you can see here, I'm just ever so slightly kicking, trying to keep my orientation right, but I'm really not putting a lot of effort into it. I have my pole spear ready to cock, I have my left hand up on the front so I can quickly load it with my right hand, and I'm just scanning around, floating through the water. And you can see there, I load up all the way, and I'm still just scanning around. I want to be able to take a shot if I need to. And that's when I spot this nice mutton snapper. This fish is just sitting in the column, and he lets me swim close enough to get a great shot in the gill plate of the fish. I'd been down quite a while, so I'm not able to pull that fish to me as quickly as I would like to, but I head for the surface as fast as I can, and I kind of scan the surface, looking to see where my buddy is. With that nice mutton in the boat, we decided to call it and start packing up for the long ride home. Day 2 really made it all worth it. 2 people landed their first African Pompano, and we were able to fill the cooler with a bunch of great eating snapper. Alright guys, we're heading home. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.